We had an interesting discussion earlier around the network orchestration model and how that is changing business models for organizations. Then we had interesting insights around this whole as a service, moving from products to service and platforms, part of it. I think fundamental to each of them is how you leverage data, how you use data as an asset. And I think that's very excited to hear from you guys as to how you are doing it, what you're seeing from your experience and all that. So, but before we walk into it, Shavik, a round of introduction, please.
Sure. So my name is Shavik. Currently, I'm with Walmart Labs, that we call. So last 7 months with Walmart, but before that, long term with Yahoo. So a good transition from what we will say a consumer internet to a e-commerce, and the whole evolution of how we had looked at data being a consumer internet to how e-commerce is looking at data and the leveraging data in terms of business, which I'm still learning, but hopefully I can bring in some context there.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm CEO of Zinnov. One of the areas we focus on is how can companies use data-driven product engineering. And we have a strong belief that roles like product management will disappear in the next few years and will be replaced by data scientists. I'll talk a little bit about that.
Oh, thank you. That's good news. So we are a data science startup. It's a 2-year-old startup. Again, Cyient invested in our company. So we have the best of both worlds. We have a $500 million global enterprise, gives us a financial stability. We have the flexibility to run it as a startup. We run our own P&L. We focus exclusively on the industrial Internet of Things. I mean, the data that's coming out of any equipment. So we call it an asset management frameworks. It could be trains, planes, or automobiles, any asset that's flying, moving on rails or road, wherever. Well, what can you do about the data that's coming out, and how can you make use of that data? And that's what we focus on.
Okay, thank you. So, Evan, before this party, you made a very astonishing statement.
You were a product manager before.
I was a product manager, yes.
Good you change your profession.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping that's not the case. If there are any product managers in the room, I hope they do continue to see relevance in their jobs and use data as an asset and, like what you guys are saying, deliver insights and all that. But let's peel that into another level. So, obviously, if you were to look at, you were with Yahoo and now you're with Walmart, and probably one of the reasons why is that because Walmart looks at itself not as a physical goods, reseller or a distributor, but rather now a data company, right? So, how do you see conventional organization now making this digital shift? How do you see leveraging data today, and what is the role of data within such an organization?
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see the transformation because organizations were built to optimize on things they used to believe is optimal, like things like for e-commerce or a commerce player is like, how do you make your supply chain efficient? How do you make sure that you are at the lowest price and make sure you are providing convenience? But if you look at the next generation, or particularly the digital world, a lot of this is now getting driven by the consumer's behavior. So interesting point, and the big delta and the difference is that what is consumer behavior? What do consumers are really looking for? And how do you combine the understanding of a consumer with offline or online world? I think that's the biggest shift that's happening in terms of the next generation of technology that's getting created. Be it companies like Uber, or be it companies which are sort of trying to optimize a lot of the offline resources. They're really looking at how do we look at data and data optimization to do this optimization and provide the best services for the customer, the type of customer they are. Because it's very clear that the whole concept of one rule that would fix or that will solve all problems is gone. Like every individual has a very different needs in terms of what they value. And the ability to understand as real time as you think about is basically changing the model of how businesses are being done in the next era, I would say.
Okay. So segueing into that, so how is that playing into what you are seeing in the space today when you are working with multiple clients across different industries? Is it something that you see very pervasive across industries?
It is. I mean, there are early adapters, there are people who are trying to adapt, and there are people who don't believe in this. So it's a typical, we are going through that hype cycle right now. I mean, we are learning from what retail industry has done. The customers have seen the successes of the banking and finance industry. They've been very heavy into analytics. Engineering is more of a model-based approach. It's basically thermodynamics. There are equations which will solve. So use that while designing the product. Then the market goes into the product, and then you go through the aftermarket. You do reliability engineering. Now they're starting to realize that you can't take a sample of 1,000 and apply it to their entire population and say, hey, just because there are 20 units which fail out of these 1,000, so let's assume that this is our failure rate and let's apply it. So now with the enablement of technology, you can actually pin down to a level of where the asset is being used. Is it failing because of the faulty component? Or is it failing because of an abuse event? The operator is not using it. I mean, let's assume you're driving a car and I'm driving a car, and for some reason your car fails, or my car, let me say, my car fails more often than yours.
My car fails all the time, you can use that.
So it's basically what it means is you got to look at it and say, are you driving it right? Are you driving at the right locations? Is the location where you're driving, does it matter?
Okay.
Are the weather patterns, I mean, are you driving deep down south, it's pretty hot, or are you driving in the northeast? There's a lot of snow. So you can't apply the same rules across to the entire population.
Got it.
Now you're taking that information into the production lines, and you're actually looking at the data coming out of production lines and say which batch of the subsystem assemblies are causing these problems. So you're not only now connecting these failures to the engineering, but you're taking into the manufacturing. So it's becoming a process and a product integration much more thoroughly. You can actually, and you want to get into the predictive maintenance equation. You don't want to do a preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance is you have specific time periods where you have to shut the system down and service it. I mean, if you're a mining equipment industry and you shut your truck down in remote area, it creates a bottleneck. I mean, you lose about a couple of $1 million. So rather, if you can actually do a preventive maintenance, you take that machine down during the scheduled downtimes where it's not scheduled to work, a tremendous improvement throughput. So everybody is realizing there's a lot of value, but again, we are going through the same resistance of who owns the data. My data is very secure, and I don't want to share my data. So there are people who are adapting it much faster than others.
Very interesting examples you've given. I think that's quite useful to kind of apply in multiple instances. So you guys are saying that data is being used in varieties of ways. So Pari, in your experience, do you see organizational fortunes deciding whether it's going to be a winner or a loser is going to be predicated on how organizations leverage data? Do you see that becoming a more stronger signal?
Yeah, so like I mentioned in the morning, it's like the media industry, right? So because the companies like Google is capturing data on the distribution platform, they're capturing the data. Now they know what the user behavior, and they're going and investing in content, and they're building content from scratch, which is relevant for the person. And they're also customizing the whole advertiser experience because the data they're getting about the customers. Netflix, the same thing, right? So they're able to now do sessions, fun shows without a pilot because they think that they can predict the success of the show. And we were in the office of Legendary Entertainment, and this was a few weeks ago in LA, and they're saying that they bought an analytics company internally.
I see.
And this analytics company was doing the work for the Obama campaign. And this is what they do right now is the movie goes out, and they have a profile of people across different locations, and they customize the trailer of the movie. So the same movie,
I see.
The trailer you see is different from what I see and what our kids see or wives see. It's highly customized. And they say that's a differentiation. And Legendary Entertainment, which is a production company, but they're now opening up the analytics division to the other production companies.
Oh, okay.
So that they can provide that as a service. Data service into others. Think of it, right? So they have built an asset and they're now opening up that asset, like almost like Amazon opening up their web services to like Walmart or Target. Right? So it's starting to happen in
Interesting.
in other industries.
So it's starting to become a strong differentiator.
Yeah, yeah.
So you talked about predictive. You talked about predictive. On the Walmart side, what predictive fun stuff are you guys doing on the using data? And when can I get the cheapest prices?
The way to think about it is everything is becoming data. I mean, even price, the
Right.
point that you're trying to go, is no more a fixed asset. It basically
Is that kind of a
it changes every second.
every second changes?
Okay.
So one of the things I was talking to the guys at Target, and they mentioned that there's so much of data now they're able to get from the e-commerce side. Now the physical store guys are saying, how do I get that level of data on the person who's walking in? Is that a big...
I mean, you are actually leaving footprint every step that you go in. Nowadays, everyone has a mobile phone. You already have the data of what you're doing in the stores. If you go into the stores, a lot of the stores have beacons, RFIDs, Wi-Fi. So you are connected. In this connected world, everywhere you are leaving some sort of a footprint. And the part is, how are you connecting those footprints together and making sure that you are able to make decisions, and decisions are real time. Because I think the other thing is the era of human-based decisions are getting over. And I think the point that I think Pari was trying to make about product management, I think it was more about the decision-making of what goes in versus what doesn't goes in, because it used to be a point of time where you had organizational hierarchy where somebody would sit over the data and say, should we do this versus that based on certain data? Now, with machine learnings and algorithms and deep learning that is coming in, to some extent, the decision making is shifting from being humans making the decision based on the data to machine making those decisions. And humans were good in sort of linear decision making, but machines are bringing more, I would say, non-linear decision makings. It's better off, the machines are making better decisions than humans. So more and more processes and more capabilities and features are shifting where machines could make this decision, be it the trailers that you should stitch together to be the price that we should show. So
you're saying even data scientists won't have a job?
Data scientists will have a job in terms of figuring out what models to learn for.
Okay.
But ultimately, the machines will make the decision, because if you think through the new models of like deep learning and others that's coming in the industry, right now what's happening is the trend is that do not go with the predefined models. Let the models learn more and try to abstract the whole piece where we used to say that, okay, pick this model, train the model, adjust the weights, and that would tell us that, okay, what decisions to make. With deep learning, slowly and steadily, that whole behavior sciences is moving towards like, let the machine learn by itself and make decisions, as compared to sort of a human-aided model where we would say that, okay, go with the model and adjust the weight based on what you are learning. So that's another shift happening on the data sciences part, which is basically more useful as you get more and more data. The predefined models are where human-assisted model may not be the best models to make decisions moving forward.
Wow, it's kind of pretty scary, but at the same time very profound. So do you see any examples or use cases for whatever you talk about?
Slight difference here. I mean, if you're flying an aeroplane, you really don't want to leave to a cognitive system to take decisions on your behalf. So you want a human
Is it not the case
intervention.
today?
It's actually the case
It's not a
today.
pilot.
I would say,
They always have an override feature. So the pilot overrides. So you need that feature when you come into a safety critical application.
That's true.
So med equipment or you have surgery that's happening, and the system will give you a guidance, but the surgeon will decide and say, sometimes you need that. But what happens is, what in this particular case is, if every time an operator, a doctor or a pilot overrides the system decision, the system learns from it. You repeat it 2 or 3 times, the system knows that, oh, next time when I make a decision, I should probably learn from what he has done. So that's the key difference between applying these skills to a safety critical applications.
Well, interesting. One is on the scale side, it's very different. Like between a surgeon is at a low scale versus you are saying every second the price changes. It is a very different scale. Would that determine the human
same
versus?
thing. I mean, the point, if you think through it, this is exactly what's happening in the automobile industry today. Like if you look at a model of Tesla, their approach is human-aided. You can run your Tesla basically with controls. You can say the machine runs it, and in some cases you will override it. Okay, that's the model Tesla is going with. On the other hand, you have the Google cars, which is saying, we'll make it so perfect that you do not need a human-aided systems. But I think the way to frame it is like any engines which are coming out in the next generation, you will start with human aided, but as the machine learns enough, human aids needs to get out, because at many times, the way you are expecting machines to make mistakes, humans can make the same mistakes or bigger mistakes. So basically, at that point of the crucial, I think those machines should make those decisions, and those should be better decisions, because the ability to churn the amount of data at the speed that you could get is much higher with a machine versus a human.
You think the technology today is at that place where, you can actually do this deep learning and then, take your hands off in terms of doing the decisions?
A lot of places it's happening. Like most of I would tell you that if I look at the use cases today, most of your Facebook tagging of your picture happens by deep learning.
That's right.
Most of Flickr tagging of similar images at Yahoo happens with deep learning. Most of the Google image recognition is happening using deep learning. So deep learning is being used more on the image and the video side of things, but it's getting into a point where it could be used more everywhere.
It's quite scary. I don't want to end this session with saying that all our jobs are gone. So where is the human value coming in? Where do you see humans adding more value in the future? So we need to kind of
we switched our topic from data to human now. How to make humans important? I think still there is a level of there's an aspect of creativity as well, and I think technology is providing a framework, and the creativity of where you take the technology to do what is still human.
Yeah, I will add one more thing. Empathy is very important. And I don't know whether machines will get empathy. And that's going to be something humans.
He's already nodding his head the other way around.
We also learned empathy from somewhere. Hopefully, machines will learn that empathy.
But it's a little far off, right? So we have a little, machines have to catch up a lot more. Maybe it's not a problem this generation has to solve.
Yeah.
Okay. So as long as for our careers, I think we did talk about empathy in the previous session as well, where if you're moving from selling boxes to a solution, how you connect with your customer and solving a problem rather than just giving a machine which washes your shirt, or where is that going is kind of a thing. I think you have a great point there. So would we just be reduced to that, or is there
no? But I think innovation still, a lot of the innovation will still come from human. Like where to use this. This is at the end of the day, human decide where and how to use the technology at this point of time, and to a large extent that will continue. And I think it's
I think the job loss is going to be massive. I think we should not put that out. Right? If you look at one of the industry we track is outsourcing industry, and 30-40% of the revenue for the outsourcing industry come from managed services. They manage infrastructure and so on, and the robotic process automation coming in, and there are millions of engineers coming out of colleges in India and China, and the primary job we need today is getting into those areas. And for the next 3-4 years, if it's all automated, what are all of these engineers coming out of colleges going to do? Right?
Okay.
It's a massive problem for countries like India and China, where they're relying on such jobs for these engineers to get in. So it's not a job loss problem. It's also a political problem, a policy problem in some of the countries.
A human problem too.
Yeah.
Maybe machines will tell us the same data model that you're running will tell us what to do.
I'm a little skeptical about it. I mean, I would say a shift of jobs, not loss of jobs. It definitely needs for retraining our engineers to think.
But do you need at that scale?
That scale, a million engineers.
Right? So whatever that enables your innovation.
Do we want a million people to be creative?
At the end of the day, I think it's an equation of like how and where you want to use your man forces. Like, I think the people and the leverage where we are using human forces has to go up the value chain. I think these forces will push humans to be used for more innovation, more thinking about how do we apply things as compared to doing mundane stuff which they were doing or which we were using people before. Even in the United States, I'm sure in 1960, number of human laborers who were actually working every day to your count today who have shifted from because of the machinery and automation that has happened. 50 years down the line, the same thing is going to happen. It's just that people will move up the value chain of where they're creating value, and hopefully that will improve the lives of human being. Because if it doesn't improve the life of human being, then that's not useful.
Let's one question which has always been on the back of my mind is that in a traditional software development process, you write a spec, you develop to that spec, and you test to that spec. In this kind of self-learning, deep learning, how do you even quality tests that what you have written?
No, but I think, so software development also, you have to go through the same life cycle to define this as well, because you have to see what you are testing, how you are testing. In this case, you have to say data quality, what type of data that you trust on, what level of trust do you assign to that data, what is the quality score on the data, what frameworks will you apply. So software development process goes through these similar cycles. It's just that
But it seems like it's a lot more fuzzy now.
It's a lot more fuzzy, and it's a lot more test-driven, which is like previously it was a human test-driven, now it's a system test-driven. Like you expose that and see that how data looks at how humans are reacting to it or how people are reacting to it. Like, are you getting more clicks to it? How are you seeing that your accuracy is high? And what could change your accuracy numbers? And
the test is not at the code level, but rather at the behavior level.
So basically you expose, and every development becomes like you expose 5% to the traffic and see what changes, then to 10%, then to 20%, then 30%, and keep on changing and shifting the dials.
Right. So Pari, QA is also gone now.
Yeah, QA is also gone.
So we need to add somewhere. So what is your view on this?
I think another one we have to explore is in traditional company, when you look at the company which have been around for the last 50 years, most of them are industrial companies, right? Company like Honeywell, GE, and a whole bunch of companies. Is there a revenue of these companies going to move into data-led products where they're going to sell data? Right? In some level, Walmart can potentially sell the e-commerce data to other companies to personalize their footprint, like how Google and Facebook are selling. Will that data being a larger chunk of revenue, or the companies like making that will disrupt these companies?
There is a shift happening in businesses. I mean, people are going from selling assets to selling services. Like GE sells their turbine engines by power by the hour. I mean, if you look at the chilling business, most of the cooling that's happening, at least in the United States, is shifting towards you buy your SLAs. I mean, there is a service provider who guarantees that they will maintain the temperatures, comfortable temperatures that you define throughout the year. So you don't invest in chillers, you don't invest in air handling units. That's somebody else's problem. So I'm concentrating on my core business. So people are leveraging that to actually, but the CapEx is shifting to somebody else, and then the business model is shifting. I think in your morning session, I think we had discussed this. So the change in the business model, I mean, if you go into the service industry, I mean, if you see the aftermarket predominantly is more profitable than selling the original equipment itself. I mean, you sell the equipment, you can only sell so many. I mean, if you are in manufacturing industry, it's very cyclic. It goes through ups and downs. Automotive is firing all 12 cylinders right now. We have seen what happened in 2008, 2009. So we are at that 17 million units per year now. When they don't sell cars, these automotive guys have to sell services and parts. So that means they have to harness the data. They need to know, track me, what am I doing with the car after the car leaves the dealer? I mean, then there is a 3-year warranty period. What happens to this asset after 3 years? There's still good 7 years of life left on this car. So people will track you down to a level where you would be changing oil and changing parts and then position your services and parts. So the data is only an enabler. I mean, I don't think it will anyway
I disagree. I don't think data is just an enabler. I think data is going to become a product by itself, right?
Yeah, so, but I think but the question is, do you sell the data or do you get higher value of building on top of it?
Yeah.
So that's the core concept.
So the company is going to sell the data, though.
I don't think it will sell the data. It will ultimately become the services of how you improve a consumer's or customer's journey with that data.
Will
so if you think through Google,
corporate valuation be based on the data you own?
Like IP.
Exactly, because if you think through it,
Is
most of the Google's value
asset?
is because of the information they have about their users. If you think through all their strategy that they have, there's more about getting to know their users better and to serve their user better. And that's happening because they have the data. So the ability to serve your customer better is a function of the data that you have. So rather than coming up with a business model that you sell the data, you basically improve the services that improves the profitability of the business rather than just sell the core data.
There is some kind of a normalization that will happen. I mean, specific to the example that I'm talking about is a gray line between who owns the data.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was the next segment that I want to talk about. With data, particularly the digital data, this whole new Pandora's box which has not been opened up. Who owns it? Who controls it? Who has access? Security? When I use your service, am I assigning rights to you for you to use it to whichever way you want to do it. Do you think these questions haven't been raised or being raised? Is it being answered? If so, what some of the point of views that you guys
Big
have?
problem for the airlines industry, the automotive industry. Typically, anybody who drives a GM, Ford, they have this onboard diagnostic systems that is pumping information. So GM is sitting on this tons and tons of data, which is very useful for the rest of the ecosystem. I mean, the insurance guys want to know how you're driving your car. The mom and pop shops wants to know when your car might need an oil change, but GM uses it for their specific purposes. They don't.
Which is exactly what he was talking about. Is that wouldn't you want this data to be used by the ecosystem?
It's almost like the after
But what's happening now is the consumer is suing GM. If my car, my data, you cannot take the data out of my car without my permission.
That's the whole thing. Ultimately, the customer controls the data.
Now GM is coming to a point where their hands are tied.
But Google and Facebook are taking data from a computer.
So that shift has to happen in the other industry.
Okay.
That shift has not happened.
You think it'll happen?
I don't agree to your Google point. Even in case of Google or Facebook or any of the companies, actually the customer controls the data. And these companies...
You agree to some long...
No, but at the end of the day, still if you look at all the court cases that are going on in the world around, everything is around that how much control are you giving back to your users that they really control the data that they are giving. And fundamentally, the businesses have to get to this compliance that customer needs to own that what they want to share versus what they don't want to share. And you can do abstraction, don't get me wrong. Like, you can create abstraction of behaviors based on the data that you have, but cannot use the data as is when you are using the data beyond an individual.
Will GM come with a model that says, I'm going to give you a $5,000 discount
Correct.
if you allow me to use it?
That's the incentive. I mean, as a consumer, as an owner, I need to have an incentive to share the data. I can give the same data to insurance guys. They'll plug in a small device in your car today. They'll give you a 10% discount. And I don't know how many of you have seen it, and you get a monthly report, and they'll put you in an A, B, C bracket. And at the end, they rated me as a C because I overspeed, I brake. I mean, then they said, hey, I can't give you a discount. I took the device back and sent it back and said, then what's my incentive? Leave it in my car.
You're going to ding.
I mean, you just took my incentive away from it. So that's the delicate balance. I think that's where we need to watch.
What about the security aspect of it? I mean, is there
huge problem
liability for the organization collecting the data to preserve it and make it secure? How do companies think about that?
More than the security, I mean, the data security, more than we were talking about it in the previous sessions about the surface and the penetration and how people can hack into it. Chrysler car, they demonstrated that somebody else can take over your car. So they had to, in a hurry, refresh apply a patch and then do a firmware upgrade.
Okay.
In a hurry, but that's just tip of the iceberg. You never know who else can hack into it. Imagine Google puts these self-driving cars onto the streets, and then you are in that
hacked
car.
at the same time. Think about it.
Take over the entire city now. Yeah.
So there is a dark side to it, but I don't think we need to pay too much attention to it. The benefits,
or maybe we should pay too much attention to it, because I do see a point where we don't want to do anything with the data. We want to do everything offline, and that's where the human jobs will come back.
That's the other end. It's like we do everything offline.
All right, let's get some questions from the folks here. Any thoughts or comments or questions for the panel? Yes.
Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I just want to comment on the waves of technology and the fact that we're here 25 years later after we had been probably in a conversation wondering if our jobs would go away. Clearly, your very dynamic discussion, at least in my own opinion, is not going to replace that, a deep learning that comes from a machine. So I appreciate your very interesting panel.
Okay.
Wow, so the panel discussion is not going to be replaced with missions. Okay, I have a job.
All right, yeah, there's a gentleman there.
Oh, thank you. Question for the gentleman from Walmart, actually.
Could you raise your voice?
Yeah, question for the gentleman from Walmart.
Yeah.
You're using all this data for your own businesses, but can you give us an example of how you're using the data to maybe enter a new business or disrupt some other business, such as healthcare. And there's a lot of talk about Walmart getting into the retail healthcare business in the stores and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to give you all the sensitive information of where Walmart is getting into.
Come on, show it, you can.
I was trying to get more abstracted, but definitely healthcare is a good example, and this is not what Walmart is doing or going to do. So I want to disconnect myself with my statement from what Walmart will do in healthcare. But healthcare, like a lot of things are happening from an innovation perspective, typically on the healthcare side, and really the data is where about, if you look at your phone, look at what you are wearing, what you are buying gives a lot of the information around what type of preferences you have. And that can really help any company to judge like what we should sell to you, what we should provide to you that is right for the person that we are selling to. And I'm not sure about Walmart, but I think a lot of startups, if I look at, is thinking around how do we leverage data to really figure out what's the best thing that an individual should do and help them guide. I see startups around exercise practices, like what is the best exercise for you given your habits, your age, your food preferences and others. I see based on things that you have purchased, like how health conscious you are, like let's say an example of fiber content in all the food items that you have purchased. Somebody can recommend that what type of dietary practice that you should go through or what type of exercise that you can go that can be helpful for your health. So what I'm seeing just from a data perspective, connecting back to what we were talking about, there are a bunch of this data that we are knowingly or unknowingly collecting based on the devices that we wear and not actually can help you also improve your lifestyle and livelihood, I would say.
Any other comment or questions? Yes, Vito?
I had the sense that you thought this was all quite sinister in terms of what's happening and what Walmart can do with the data.
I was supporting you, so I didn't say all the jobs are going to go away. So
yeah, I'm a product manager. I should be worried now.
But maybe my observation is in healthcare, there are two huge reasons why this kind of stuff, collecting data on things, is actually incredibly beneficial and will be incredibly beneficial. One is just on clinical decision making, right? I mean, the way your healthcare decisions are made are arcane, but the other also has to do with the cost. Because the cost of the US healthcare system, in large part, I think, is due to complete obfuscation of where the cost is coming from. You have no idea what your procedure is going to cost. Even if I go to my doctor and ask them, what is this going to cost? They will not be able to tell me. They'll say, oh, we'll have to wait what somebody else is going to say. So making that much more transparent, just like it happened, for example, with Amazon and buying things online, So I'm actually looking forward to more data in healthcare.
Exciting, yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
I'd just like to share some experience and maybe get some comment. So I love the whole data conversation that went on. And from personal experience, heading a BU on the direct consumer direct side for one of the Fortune 500, I see data helping us a lot. And I can relate to the gentleman who works for Walmart and what you said. But then I often find ourselves having this overabundant of data and data analysis paralysis mode that we get into in terms of making decisions. Also, a lot of disparate data coming from different units and even from what we collect versus what agencies tell us, and data integrity issues coming. I don't see that going away just because on the direct line, the way we collect that data, and the offline retail side, how that data gets collected, how it gets related to a particular customer or end user, and then even through the product development cycle all the way to how we market. So not to get me wrong, we utilize data very effectively all the way throughout the life cycle, from supply chain to targeting, just like you guys do on the direct side. But I just think there is there's so much talk of data until for several years we've been trying, and we're still stuck in these silos and disparate data that we have, and we're using portions of data to make portions of decision and never a seamless data integration for the entire life cycle. I'd just love to hear anybody's opinion here. How do you see this going away, especially in larger organizations where you have such diverse cross-functional groups and divisions?
Very interesting point there. They say like lies, damn lies, and statistics. So how do you connect that silos?
The point that she is trying to make is different sources have different quality of data. Associating the data and really weaving the data together actually is always not the right thing to do, because you create more issues around the decision making because your data is corrupted. So the only one liner I will say there is my belief there is get your customer to more own the data as compared to corporate stitching the data. That's where phenomenal shift of quality of data will occur. And it's a hard move because there are a lot of systems, a lot of big corporations have built over years based on all sorts of algorithms which do not correlate, so or would not stitch together. So the way to handle it is how do you expose it, open it up for the consumers to make the decision on your behalf as compared to you making those decisions for the consumer.
Very interesting point of view, actually.
So comment about that is some of the customers are migrating towards this data lake for typical manufacturing, where they dump the data as is into a lake and everybody dips into the same lake and gets whatever information they want from it. So that way, the same lake, the guys, product engineering guys are looking at the same set of data and they look for what they want. So you're not creating data marts and ignoring the rest of the data which goes away, disappears. The data stays as it is. So storage is becoming slightly cheaper and easier. I've seen customers migrate towards that data lake concept. Now, the aftermarket guys dig into the same thing. The procurement guys dig into the same data lake. So everybody is drinking from the same lake. So huge advantage in that particular case.
Interesting. Okay. Great, great points of view, I think. Any other question? Okay, there's one final question, and then we'll wrap up.
So he cannot ask me a question.
This is to the panel. Right. I won't single you out. How's that? Data-driven business models can only take you so far, and I don't believe they can take you to the absolute decision. In other words, yes or no on something. Where does the intuitive side fit into the data business-driven model?
I love this question because this is one we can say we won't automate it, right? So, anyone else? Pari, you want to take that?
Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting. It's a poetic justice here. You're taking that question, right? Because you started off by saying all jobs are gone. Now he's talking about intuitive question and then
intuition, empathy. So they're going to be parts of the business,
right?
Which requires that. Yeah.
So I think is organization DNA has to be more empathetic and intuitive. Is that what the fabric of organization is going to be? How do you see that?
That has to come into the culture of the organization, about understanding customer, building that into your organization across. Before, your product team will build something, push it out, and then the sales guy will sell it, and the sales guy will forget about it because service will manage it. Right now, because of data, the whole thing is integrated. So the empathy should be across the organization, not just with customer support, which is what the case today with most companies. The customer support is supposed to be empathetic. Engineer doesn't care, do this, and that's going to change. It's going to be
Vito talked about in the previous segment about the same. Any example? You have a lot of examples there.
In terms of which company is doing it, or
anywhere, any company.
I think it's most SaaS-based companies are building into it, right? And I also have a view that. Especially we help companies in the globalization journey. And before there was a issue that, hey, these engineers are sitting in India, like a country like India and China, they don't have understanding of the customer and thereby they won't be able to innovate. Now with the data-driven business models, engineers have a very good understanding, and in some level the societal nature of where they're living, they seem to be more empathetic as a team.
Okay.
And I believe that is going to really help in building products which are in this aspect, augment the data decisions.
Got it. I think that's a fantastic question. Thank you very much. On a very positive note, we've kind of dissected the data here. So hopefully we've kind of got some good key takeaways. At least I got a bunch of stuff. I really like the one about how you said we have to let customers own the data for your quality to improve. I also like the other point of view of saying everybody needs to dip into the same pool, only then it'll quality improve. I think good key takeaways. Thank you very much for sticking with us. And I so love you guys for that. Thank you. Have a great evening.